Synopsis. We open on the guys playing a prank on James, seeing as he fell asleep by the pool. They praise the fact that they feel like they're on a vacation, seeing as the work that they do have to do, they still enjoy. Kelly shows up and tells them that they have to get ready, and they choose to try and guess what they're going to have to do today. They make guesses that maybe it's studio work, maybe they're going to work on harmonies, or if you're like James, you're optimistically assuming that they're going to a party.
Close. You're going to school.
They beg Kelly not to take them, but she informs them they're required to have 4 hours of school a day minimum, seeing as they're under the age of 18. Let's ignore the fact that they were all over the age of 18 when this show came out, with Kendall being the youngest at 19. But this show was in the works for about 2 years, meaning that they would still be teenagers at that time, so I'll let it slide. We then see that school is starting for everyone else, and we see that the Palmwood school actually isn't that bad, as the teacher even brought pies for everyone to share. The boys get excited just to be ripped away and brought to their actual new school. It seems Gustavo has actually made a plan to get past the 4 hours of school a day clause that the guys have to abide to, as by setting up his own school at Rocque Records, they can practice singing, dancing, and take field trips to red carpet parties whenever they want. The guys should love this idea, right?
I don't like this school!
Make up your mind, guys. Well, I guess in their defense, their new teacher does seem to be on the mean side. Moving over to the B-plot, Kendall's mom and sister Katie decide the Palmwood school is a good fit for her, especially since that means Mrs. Knight doesn't have to homeschool her. As it would seem, she can only get into the school if she has a job in television, movies, or music. But instead of turning them away, hotel manager, Mr. Bitters, offers to become a talent manager.
Oh, I see what you did there!
Back at the School of Rock, the boy's new teacher reveals he used to be part of a boy band when he was younger. He makes the boys feel uncomfortable by venting out about how his band failed and his dreams were crushed, even working it into their lesson. The boys have a fantasy of the Palmwood School where they get to eat pies, have a water fight, and no homework, leading to an admittedly funny joke.
Did you guys just have the same Palmwood school fantasy as me? Was the history assignment bungee jumping? Close enough.
The four create a plan to get rid of their teacher, and before they know it, they're getting him to dance, sing, and fly to Germany to be part of a man band. Gustavo gets wind of this pretty quickly, and sure enough, orders a new teacher who is much, much, much worse. Back with Katie, though, she's reading lines for a laxative commercial. And, oh no. I'm not going to touch this one. Let's just mark this writer down and hope it's all just a bad coincidence. Back at the studio, the boys' new teacher is unbreakable, threatening to beat them with a belt, and how she could never.
Here's the keys to the Porsche out front. Leave now and it's yours.
Again, another good joke, but moving on, we see that the reason they're forced to stay is Gustavo's always wanted to be a principal himself, claiming he'll get whatever it takes to get someone to enforce his rules. Kendall calls him out on his bluff, and, oh, it wasn't a bluff. This teacher definitely seems to be the worst out of the bunch so far, seeing as he doesn't teach, but rather gets them to lift their own desks. The next day, they pass by Frankie again, and he gives them another fantasy about the Palmwood School, this time being a pool party. They're snapped out of it by Kelly, and after they all share their fantasies with each other, Kendall forms a plan. Back with the B-plot though, Katie is trying out for a potato chip commercial. She actually aces the commercial, but decides to criticize the writer for lousy writing. Better hope I never get her on my show. But back with Mr. Masters, the boys decide to use the lunch Kendall's mom packed as fake puke, and all start eating it in front of the teacher, freaking him out and causing him to run away screaming. Gustavo brings up a list full of teachers he can call at any point when one of them leaves. James is initially ready to throw in the towel, but Logan realizes there's more to the list than just teachers. It's also a list full of guidelines that the school has to follow. They go through any and all rules that could be any type of inconvenience towards Gustavo, starting with requirements of lockers and paid teacher sick days. But before we continue, let's check out the B-plot. I'll come back later. Kelly and Gustavo panic over how to get past the guidelines that have been set up. He says he'll never... Is that a goat? The guys have somehow set up an entire sports event inside Gustavo's studio. Even Kelly joins in on their side, seeing as can't beat him, join him. Gustavo is vividly upset and refuses to let them win. However, to punish them, they all get expelled. The next day, the boys attend the Palmwood School, and even see that Katie got a part in a soap commercial. Class starts and the boys get to live out their fantasies. Just too bad their school is actually nothing like their fantasies. Thoughts? Oh my god, this episode was bad, to say the least. I mean, I only have the pilot to compare it to, so I understand I might be holding it up to a higher standard, but I just can't ignore the flaws in this episode. To start, I just want to talk about how the guys wanted to focus on their music instead of going to school, and then when they got that, they hated it? I understand they had unrealistic expectations on what the Palmwood School actually was, but even then I feel like a plot like that is just kind of forced. Granted, the episode actually did have a few jokes that made me laugh, so I can't say this episode was worthless. Definitely has some pretty high highs, even if the episode itself was ranked pretty low. I think I'm willing to give this episode a gold record, and hope it isn't a standard for the rest of the show. Trivia.
Did you know that this episode was a parody of the 2003 film of the same name?
Yes, the title is a parody of a Jack Black film called The School of Rock. But what you might not know is that there's actually a 2016 reboot done as a TV show, and guess who appears as a guest star in a single episode? That's right, Kendall from Big Time Rush. Also, a funny mess-up that happens in this episode, Gustavo actually refers to Chris Masters as a former WWE champion, but in real life he never actually won a fight. Which I completely understand why he wouldn't correct them on set. While I did have to do some digging to find this trivia myself, I should credit my sources. I got most of this information from the Big Time Rush fan wiki, specifically the blog Big Time School of Rock. If you want to fact check me, feel free to do so in the comments below, and if it's a big enough slip up on my part, I'll try and have your comment penned, assuming I haven't already done that to someone else. Well, that episode is out of the way. I gotta say, I was not too impressed with it, but let's hope it's all uphill from here. Well, now that we're done at school, we might as well head back to my place. My mom made snacks.
When the window blew out, I fell, cut myself. As the blood spilled, I was helpless, nearly killed. Your actions, they did curse me, and yet your lies still hurt me. One heart for hoping.